Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for a little bit of a late start, dealing with a couple of technical difficulties, but I want to thank you all for being here late and so close to the holidays. And I know many of you are on your break already, so we really, really appreciate you attending our December monthly webinar, our last monthly webinar of 2017. And we're very much looking forward to an interesting discussion today in diversity, our vision, our value, with Catch the Next community leadership mentor, Kevin Christian of the American Association of Community Colleges. And without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Kevin Christian. Kevin A. Christian serves as the Senior Program Associate for Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity at the American Association of Community Colleges, the AACC. In his role, he is the staff liaison to AACC's Commission on Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity and reviews national trends that affect diverse student populations. In addition, Christian manages AACC's Minority Male Student Success Database, which highlights community college programs and initiatives that focus on mentoring, recruitment, persistence, and completion. Previously, Christian was the Assistant Director for Career Services at the College of Southern Maryland, formerly Charles County Community College, and served as the co-chair for the Campus Diverse Student Programs Committee. In addition, he serves on the Blue Ribbon Panel for the Community College Consortium for Immigrant Education and the Advisory Board for the National Association for Partnerships in Equity. From 2012 to 2014, he served on the National Advisory Committee for Improving Outcomes for Men of Color in Community Colleges. Currently, he is a doctoral candidate in the Community College Education Program at George Mason University. An avid sports fan, Christian is a native Washingtonian who also enjoys collecting family history and African American historical artifacts. Please join me in welcoming Kevin Christian.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. Dr. Lydia, thank you very much. Dr. Maria, thank you as well. I want to thank everyone for being here on Thursday before Christmas holidays. I greatly appreciate you. I am Kevin Christian. I'm the Senior Program Associate for Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity at the American Association of Community Colleges. And what I would like to talk about is basically 2017, the year in review, and talk about my role here at the association and what the association is involved in and how it involves you. Go to the next slide here. Okay, why leaders are important. The American Association of Community College is the national advocacy and membership organization for the nation's 1,108 community colleges. We are a membership-driven organization, but our primary contacts are the presidents and CEOs of your institutions. However, our presidents are retiring in rapid numbers, and we're looking to for best ways and best practices to strengthen the pipeline, especially for leaders of color who are looking to persist in upper-level administrative positions in community colleges. And we'll go to the next slide here. Community college values. Here at the association, we really pride ourselves and we build ourselves around our institutions and what our institution stands for. As most of you know, community colleges were built for access. For those who did not have an opportunity to possibly go to a four-year institution or who needed extra help before they went to a four-year institution. And we pride ourselves on success and student success. We're also very responsive to our community and our community's needs. But more recently, we've seen some of our systems take the word community out of their title. While they have done that, they're still very instrumental in serving the needs of their base and making sure that the students, the employers, and all of the individuals who need their services in their particular area are served. Community colleges were built for a clear focus on student learning. We offer associate degrees, we offer credentials, we offer contract training, we offer non-credit courses, and quick and easy training for individuals to get jobs, or to provide them with training so that they can be job ready when they go out in the world. We also pride ourselves on our resourcefulness. Most of the times, community college can adapt to any particular situation and work to fulfill their workforce needs and, again, the needs of their community. Most of us, especially in 2017, are now built on resourcefulness. But that is very, very tricky in a number of places because resources are slowly but surely drying up and everyone is fighting for that little piece of the pie. But in our sector, you find that we make the most of what we have. Again, entrepreneurial spirit is very important in that we have become more global in our scope. We are driven on a business model. A number of your institutions may have already begun to implement performance-based measures and may have looked at going to a business model to explain to your board and the people that you serve why your data and your statistics are the way they are, why your enrollment is the way it is, and how you are serving your particular audience. We pride ourselves on our creativeness. Most of the colleges that we work with have programs that fit all types of models and serve all different types of populations and are very keen in making sure that they're in touch with their community needs and the publics and populations that they serve. And lastly, I just want to talk about our innovativeness. With the advent of technology, community colleges have become extremely innovative in looking at ways to reach their audiences. There are classes now on cell phones. There are classes now online. There are classes that are strictly done through your iPad and your iPhone. You name it from a technology standpoint, one of our colleges is doing it. I just recently learned that from the faculty ranks, and I'm not sure if any of you can relate to this, that some of our classes are now being taught by robots, or they have a robot in the class with the professor to help navigate, the students' needs and help students with becoming successful. And I will go to the next slide here. America's community colleges, something that we're very proud of. We normally do this when we do our presentations. We talk about our facts and the data that we measure. And 41% of all U.S. undergraduates are educated at our institutions. 40% of all of our first-time freshmen are at community college. 56% of all Native Americans, 52% of Latino and Hispanic, 43% of Black and African American, and 40% of Asian and Pacific Islanders are educated at our institutions. And this data and these numbers come from our 2017 AACC fact sheet. And I will send Dr. Lydia a copy of the fact sheet, or you can go to our website and download it. And our website is www.aacc.nche.edu. And as you can see, we are very proud of the numbers that we have. Our institutions work very hard at sustaining this. Most of the data that we have here is pulled from iPads. It's what our colleges report. We do have an institutional research department here. And if you're looking specifically for some data, if you let me know, I may be able to ask them and they could possibly disaggregate it for you to get you the numbers that you are particularly looking for. Now, one thing we don't do is we do very little in the realm of faculty. However, that is slowly changing in that we have started a faculty council They meet once a year at our annual convention, and our convention this year will be in Dallas, Texas, April 28th through May the 1st. And it's going to be at the Dallas Convention Center. And I don't know the particular charge of the faculty council, but I think it's to observe and investigate best practices so that we're more informed about what faculty at our colleges are doing. As I indicated previously, we primarily work with the presidents. However, we are, in my particular department, very interested in learning best practices for culturally responsive pedagogy. And if you have a model that you would like to share with us for recruiting and retaining faculty of color or STEM faculty, we would be very interested in learning more about what you're doing at your institution. Next slide. The association prides itself on what we call our leadership competencies. Every 2 to 3 years, we survey the field, and it's primarily from a leadership standpoint on what are some competencies that we think highlight the best abilities for a leader at the community college level. The first one is organizational strategies. You must have that keen development to be able to strategize and prioritize. I talked about this earlier with resources drying up, managing the resources that you have, but also going after resources that everybody else kind of has their eye on as well. One key one that I think all of our institutions really look at: finance, research, fundraising, and resource management. I know that's a mouthful, but as a leader, you must be fully vested and fully competent in knowing the entire role of your institution and how that fits into your institution. As I said, looking at the way the president looks at it, the president is primarily your principal fundraiser. And one of the president's primary responsibilities is to raise funds while also bringing their institution resources that will help their students. And then just getting your hand around managing it all or managing what you have. The fourth one is communication. And this one was a tough one for a number of our colleges in 2017. A number of our colleges dealt a lot with crisis communications from the diversity standpoint. I'll speak from my lens and my role here at the association. Due to the change in the administration, a number of colleges, when tweets were sent out, really had to respond to their students and their student base. And just getting a grip around how to communicate and what to say and how to say it proved to be challenging for a number of our colleges. And I'm sure that you may have faced that at your institution. We have to be very careful here about advising our colleges with certain things that they can and cannot say. So we're also very cautious, but we are very aware of some things that happen. And a number of our colleges faced crisis communication this year. A number of our presidents had to do it. I'm sure that your institutions have had to work with your local press. If things happen on your campus, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, and just getting positive and consistent messaging out to your students, to your staff, and to your local area is very important for any leader in any organization. Another competency is collaboration. As community colleges and the students that we serve, it is important that we collaborate with all of our publics. Most of us collaborate with our K through 12 system. We collaborate even with our competitors. We also collaborate with our four-year institutions with regards to transfer. We collaborate with our state and federal agencies in reporting data and also looking for funding. We also collaborate with outside organizations that are seeking us to either provide training, provide space, facilities, whatever we can do to facilitate the community college's role. And then last but not least, community college advocacy. That is probably what AACC does primarily here for our institutions. We are on the ground 24/7 advocating for our colleges, our leadership, and the students that you serve. So here again, you will see these quite frequently if you come to AACC meetings. They're taught in a lot of the graduate programs and doctoral programs in community college leadership. They are on our website and you can download them. They are currently under review to see if there needs to be some additions and/or changes. So as soon as that comes out, they're normally done like every 2 to 3 years. The last one was done in the beginning of 2016. This is what our group came up with, and these are the ones that we currently use today. Next slide here. Top 10 issues in community colleges from my vantage point. I told you 2017 was a unique year in that we did have a new administration. We did have a appointment of a new Secretary of Education, but in terms of guidelines or in terms of priorities from that particular department, that has not been communicated as such. We are very supportive of the administration, and we look forward to working with them as they decide to lay out their priorities. But from my lens as the diversity officer and speaking with our member institutions, I'm going to look at the 10 that I came up with, and hopefully some of these will ring and resonate with you. Number one, the economy. Enrollments, for the most part, at our colleges have sort of stabilized. Some of our colleges are seeing growth, whereas some are not seeing as much growth as they would like. But the economy around them has remained stagnant. For the most part, it has not moved. Tuition may have gone up slightly. Becoming 21st century ready is becoming an issue for some, but just maintaining a base, making sure that things are affordable for our students, making sure that students get the best services, but how that affects the role of the institution and the business sector around it is very, very important. To go with that, I would also say sustainability. We see that at all of our institutions and in a number of our programs. What can we do to maintain it, sustain it, and take it to scale? I'm sure each one of you at some time in your career will hear those buzzwords or will hear those words, and how our institutions look at sustainability. It's tricky because there's no cookie cutter method, and a number of our institutions do the same thing but do it differently. So it's very interesting to see specifically, especially centered around diversity, inclusion, and equity, and working with diverse populations, how to sustain the success that you may have in doing that. I'm very interested in learning about promising practices and best practices that your institutions have with regards to any diverse population you may have. Veterans, students with disabilities, single parents, faculty of color, again, faculty in STEM related disciplines. As Dr. Lydia indicated, I have done a lot of work with regards to the men of color space. So if you have anything that you could share with us, we would be interested in learning more about what you're doing at your institution. Student success. This is a prime one, in that everything that we do here, and I'm sure that everything that you do in your walk is centered around the success of your students. With funding being cut in a number of places, with legislative and administrative changes, with tuition rates going up, the success of our students is extremely, extremely important. And with performance-based funding at a number of our institutions, the goal to either get a student to complete a credential and/or degree or to transfer to a four-year institution is highly visible. But when you look at the data, community college graduation rates are not as high as we would like them to be. And we can get into that discussion back and forth, but the success of our students is key and prime to all that we do. The fourth issue, in my viewpoint, is education alignment. And here again, I'm not going to spend each day because it depends on the lens you look at it through. When we look at our K through 12 work and then the work of our colleges, and then we see the number of students that are being placed in developmental classes and developmental education, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road, and it depends on how you look at it. And just aligning those two forces has been a challenge for a number of our systems. And it takes dynamic leaders to go into situations like this and to work the best situations that will work for the students. It's easy to point the finger, but the fingers need to be pointed where we can best come to a solution. And the alignment of our education system now, I forget the ranking that the U.S. has now because it changes like today, but we're no longer number one. We're down like number 8 or 9. And so the way we align our forces, the way we align our institutions is key and critical. Equity and inclusion. I'm going to scream this to the top of my lungs. This is highly critical and highly key, especially in the society that we currently have around us. The situation that happened at the University of Missouri, the situation that happened in Charlottesville, and just everything centered around race, culture, creed, religion, sexual orientation. I could go on and on. I know to some of you that this is key and relevant. This is very important, and it's highly critical that at our institutions, leadership is focused on this area and willing to give it resources, funding, and staffing to manage it. That is very, very important. You also need to have someone who's well-versed in Title IX and also in legal issues that center around diversity, inclusion, and equity. And it can be very tricky depending on the makeup of your institution and depending on how your institution governs. So that is 2017 was a challenging year in particular for this particular area. The association, we did a joint statement with our sister association, the Association of Community College Trustees, to ensure that diversity, inclusion, and equity is infused in any initiative that we do and any undertaking that we take. So please know that your two key associations, the trustees and the presidents, are aware of what's going on and have made a commitment to support our institutions in that way. I had mentioned before, when you look at the competencies, globalization, now our colleges can no longer just stay in our own backyard, even though our own backyard is very important. We have to educate our students to be globally competent as we send them out in the world. You know, we now have the World Wide Web. We have partnerships with international organizations. We have study abroad programs. We have exchanges with faculties at international institutions. We also educate international students. The issue, going back just to equity and inclusion for a minute, in 2017, I'm sure all of you are fully aware with the Dreamers and the DREAM Act and the president's stand on DACA and what effect they may have on the colleges if his ruling stays final. You know, we're talking April or March, that if DACA is cut, and how that will affect our colleges and our DACA students. But being globally minded and globally competent is important for our colleges as we educate our students in the 21st century. STEM, key in all that we do. A number of things centers around science, technology, engineering, and math. There are a number of employment opportunities for our students who take this path. There are also opportunities to transfer for our students. Employers in this particular field are now looking at our colleges and looking at our students to grow and develop professionally, especially as they look to increase their global markets and their diversity metrics with regards to recruitment of students and professionals of color. So the STEM piece is also extremely important. Here at AACC, we have a advanced technology education grant through the National Science Foundation. There are a number of ATE centers that are at our colleges. My colleague Ellen Haas is the project director over that program. So if you have any questions specifically with regards to ATE, if you shoot them to me, I'll make sure she gets them. She will be back in the office in the new year. We're looking to possibly do a diversity piece at her next conference where we bring in thought leaders who are of a diverse population but have a key connection to STEM at their colleges. So that's something for you to consider. An aging population. The baby boomers, the group known as the baby boomers are now retiring. But a number of them are finding out that even today, even with retirement, they need to either get additional education to stay current, and we're finding that a number of them also need to work just to maintain a living. So we're beginning to see the aging population slowly come back to our colleges because they're looking for training or they're looking for taking courses that will make them eligible to compete in today's job market with the way that things are laid out. Even with our presidents, a number of our presidents are beginning to retire, and as they look to second careers, or if they do not want to go back in the community college sector, they will go to take a quick course or take some training. There are a number of our students who are at our colleges who already have either bachelor's and or advanced and or terminal degree. So the aging population is relevant and key at all of our institutions. Leadership and accountability. We hear it all the time. What does the data say? What does the numbers say? What does this population look like? And how is my institution accountable for all that we do? Everything has to be documented. Everything has to be reported. Everything has to be logged. Each one of you definitely sends, I'm not sure if you have an institutional research department at your college. More than likely you do, or you have that one or two dedicated persons who is responsible for making sure that all of your data is captured and reported. And here that is key to all that we do in our work here at the association. And last but not least, technology. Technology changes every month. You just look at the iPhone, what the iPhone has done, and you look at computers, and you look at cell phones, and how our colleges are now um, looking to maintain their uh, their technology base at their institutions, and what type of budget that takes, and all that goes into staying current with the rate that technology is. I'm sure we could add 10 more, or you could add 10 more, but from the lens that I sit, I thought those 10 would be the 10 that I would like to share with you, and for you to think about as you go into the new year, and as you look at your institution. And if there's some that you think you may want to add or plug in underneath, after we finish our webinar today, shoot me an email, and let's discuss it. I'll go to the next slide. More enrollment pressures. As I said, most of our colleges are looking at the enrollment numbers and maintaining the enrollment management piece for the 21st century. From where I sit, we have an increasing number of people who will seek higher education or some form of a credential in the coming year. Our rising tuition costs, not only at the four-year schools, but even at our colleges, just to maintain, will drive a number of students to our institutions because of the cost. We are still relatively less expensive, and you get more bang for the buck. And we're more flexible in terms of our offerings with our times and with the technology. Lifelong learning is continuous for everyone. And I'm sure that each one of you see that in your role and at your institutions. And that will definitely affect enrollment, even on the non-credit side of your house. I'm not sure how many of you work on the non-credit side, but even on the non-credit side of your house, you see more and more students, especially our older students, looking for that additional training, who may not want credit or who may not want to feel the pressure of being in a credit class. And then, as I indicated before, the retiring baby boomers, even though they're retiring, a number of them are finding out that they either have to work part-time just to sustain. So they're looking at our institutions for additional education and training. To the next slide. Funding. Most of our institutions have slowly begun to lose state funding, or their state funding has been somewhat cut, or they're in competition with the four-year schools in their states. There's more and more competition for state resources, and as our institutions are becoming performance-based, just seeing how that will play out, our colleges definitely have to strategize and definitely have to take a look at their data and take a look at their structure to see how best to plan and prepare, because the funding issues will continue to remain in 2018. Our for-profit institutions, I'm not going to call out their names, we're pretty familiar with them, or you know the competition in their area. They have become more aggressive in going after their students, but they have also become more aggressive in seeking public funding. And that is another interesting conversation that we could probably have offline, or maybe do a session on how that works, because you see how the enrollment numbers are and how they're doing, and you sit there and say, well, what are we doing wrong, or what are we not doing right, and how do they do it, and how do we do it? You look at that comparison and that contrast. And as I've indicated before, our colleges will have to become more adept in looking at private resources, earmarks, and grant funds to maintain and sustain some of the programs and some of the specific programs that we may have dedicated for a particular population. You know this, the money is tight. It's very tight, and it's very competitive to compete for. All of us are competing for a small slice of the pie. And as more of us compete for that small slice of the pie, things become a little tougher and tougher and tougher. And depending on where you are, depending on what your regulations say, and depending on the data points or the metrics that you've laid out for yourself that you'll have to meet, the funding is critical. It's definitely a critical piece. Next slide. As leaders, we all face a lot, but I just want to leave you with this. Strive for a balance. One is your professional life. As professionals, you all know the lay of the land at your institutions. You know the lay of the land in the work that you do. You know the lay of the land in the students that you serve and how best to serve them. In addition, you also have to have that balance in your personal life. You have to take time out for your family. You have to take time out for yourself. Sometimes you have to step away. I mean, even if you're a workaholic, if you're dedicated, for those of us who are here on the Thursday before the holiday, to here again, to show that dedication and to also be committed to the work that you do. And then also in your spiritual life. I think that is very important that you always step back to take a moment to assess where you are spiritually or where you would like to be. I think when you combine those three and you get that balance, and all of us have a different balance, and work-life balance is a challenge for a number of us. I'm sure there are times when if you have young families and you're here 7, 8 at night, or you're taking a trip and you're flying here and you're flying there, or you got to pick up your kids, or you got to take your parents, you know what I'm talking about. Balancing that whole commitment to making yourself true to the values that you have learned and that you have set, and true to your commitment to being a professional. And last but not least, tying into that, let me just go back to that real quick. Take good care of yourself. And a lot of times we say we're going to do it, and a lot of times we don't do it. In your work and in the work that you do, be a scholar. Exercise regularly, even if it's just getting up from your desk and taking a 10-minute walk around the campus or out for lunch. Try your best to lead a balanced life. Everything should not be about work and the college, even though that is a vital part. Lead a balanced life. For all that we do, I cannot stress this, be on time. I think we all know that. As professionals and as leaders, ethics. Most of the time we hear about our colleagues, or we hear something, or we see something, and we will sit there and we will say, and I know we've all said it, how or why do smart people do dumb things? And we've seen it happen. I definitely see it here, and hear about some of the things that some of our leaders have been involved in, and things that, and I always tell people, maintain your strong ethics, and 9 times out of 10 things will go right. Maintain a sense of humor. Please don't make everything uptight. It's good to laugh. It's good to maintain a sense of humor. It's to have fun, and to show your colleagues that despite your position on the leadership ladder, that you are human. And always find a way to grow and develop professionally. I waited late to pursue a doctorate, but it was, and although sometimes I kick myself and say, oh, I wish I would have done this then, I wish I would have done this now, it wasn't my time. I'm glad I did it when I've done it, and it has really assisted me even now to grow and develop professionally by learning new skills and by being vested in making sure that I get this finished because I'm determined to get it finished. But there's not a day that doesn't go by here in my role at the association that I don't learn something new or come across something new that I haven't learned before. And if it's really of interest to me, I make sure that I'm vested in learning more about it. So with that said, I just want to say thank you for taking the afternoon to hear some of the things that I have to say. I'm more than welcome to answer any questions or take questions if you have any. I can give you my email address real quickly. You can email me or contact me. And if I can do anything else for you in the future, please do not hesitate to give me a call or let me know. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I love ending on this note of work-life balance and the great advice you've given for taking care of ourselves as we go into the new year. I think that's kind of a perfect way to end our last monthly webinar of the year of 2017. However, if anybody has any questions, absolutely we'll open up for questions for Kevin Christian.
I want to follow up on your comment, Lydia. Kevin, I do believe that it is a great way to end the calendar year, and excellent words of wisdom for us to consider for 2018. The challenges that you raise illustrate that uh, demands on your mind and heart are going to continue as we move forward. But looking ahead with a balanced mind will definitely make the difference.
Mm-hmm.
I also very much appreciated your conversation on leadership. One of the things that we want our faculty and administrators to keep in mind is that as they continue to grow, they will be expected to move up the ladder and to
Mm-hmm.
assume positions that maybe they did not consider when they first started their work at their institutions or even with our program. I know we have a lot of adjuncts that are now professors or they have a permanent position finally. Some have become department chairs. And, we do want them to think ahead. So that was wonderful. So thank you so much for bringing that up. I had a question regarding
Sure.
um, some statements that came out in CNN last week
Okay.
regarding the Center for Disease Control
Mm-hmm.
banning certain words in their documents. And one of the words was diversity, and the
Mm-hmm.
other one was evidence based. A few minutes afterwards, or when they were challenged, they kind of cleaned it up a bit, but I think that the impact was felt,
Mm-hmm.
and there is concern as to what the priorities of the administration will be in the future. And diversity and being data driven is very important to us. So I wonder what your thoughts were um, on that.
Dr. Maria, I did not see that on CNN, but I will say this. Here at the association, we take diversity as one of our values. I don't think you will see it disappear here, but at a number of our colleges, there has been, I'm not going to say pushback, a number of people would like to change it, or change the word, and I think it's sort of governed by the power structure at your institution. Um, the word equity and the word inclusion will be are, I don't want to say substitutions, but are sort of like a softer blow for the word diversity. Diversity has been a buzzword that has been around for 30 years to a number of people. A number of people are not really sure of its true meaning. And I'm sure each one of us have said, okay, it's not throwing a person of color in a group of white people. That's not diversity. Um, if you ask 15 people at a community college to define it, you may get 15 different answers. And that's the difficulty around it. But more and more are looking. A lot of the new leaders are looking at ways to do new strategic planning around their diversity measures or metrics at their institutions. Last week, 2 weeks ago, the 11th of December, AACC held a small convening of chief diversity officers in community colleges. We're beginning to see a rise in that position, and we wanted to hear from them as to why. And it's all of the issues that they're facing. In terms of the administration really has not given any guidelines on what it will do in terms of diversity or in using the word. So I want to be very astute in saying that here again, depending on where you are, AACC, we still use the word. I don't think it's going anywhere. However, some of our colleges have said, we've gotten rid of the word, and here's why. We want to be more inclusive. Some of our faculty, staff, and students just think that diversity is an old term, and we want to bring it 21st century. Now, in terms of evidence-based, the word evidence-based, I don't ever think that will disappear from here or from our colleges. 99.9% of the work that we do is based on evidence and measures. So I don't see that going anywhere particularly. So I would, not having seen what you saw, and the context that the Center for Disease Control used it in, I'll just leave my comment there. But I can see the word diversity at our institutions being changed or switched, or even taken out of a mission statement. And you will see equity, you will see inclusion, you will see completion, you will see, I mean, there are a whole number of statements for it. But in terms of evidence-based, I don't think that will go anywhere. And I hope I answered that for you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a really exciting conversation. I definitely want to jump in, and maybe we can continue it
Sure.
at a later date at maybe
Okay.
an institute or something like that. But I think, we've had another of our peer mentors, Dr. Cephas Archie, who was the I think assistant director of diversity and inclusion initiatives at Houston Community College.
Mm-hmm.
And I know one of the things that he always brought to attention when he spoke was that diversity just is. In Houston, it certainly just is. you
Mm-hmm.
know, the work is toward equity and inclusion.
Right.
And while I understand that perspective, I also think about, employers now seeking more diverse perspectives. So,
Yes.
Not reducing diversity to race and ethnicity, but also thinking about diversity of discipline, right? Where companies
Mm-hmm.
like Google and Apple are actively seeking humanities majors to work with their computer science and engineers,
Yes.
computer science majors and engineers, to have that broad diversity of perspective. And the same is true when we talk about experience, and it is not reducible to race and ethnicity alone, but
Right.
thinking about the experiences of our students of color, of
Mm-hmm.
our, non-gender identifying students and LGBT students, and, that all of that diversity of experience, I think, is maybe where the conversation is leading. But it's a really, really interesting discussion.
Dr. Lee, that is here again. That is a very good point, and as you said, it is a difficult conversation to have at our institutions, but there are a number of brave institutions who have had them, and
Mhm.
and as you indicated before, with regards to employers are now even when we go for our interviews, they're saying, what is your commitment to diversity, and cite examples that show you are committed. And what does that mean? Because my diversity lens may be different from yours, but as educators and as community college professionals, we have to be ready to answer that question. And it, like you said, it goes far than just working with diverse student populations. Mindset, thinking, worldview, globalization, handling particular situations, even having a difficult conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and how to do it. Those are showing up in interviews. Those are showing up on applications. I'm not sure if with some of the faculty, if they've ever been asked that when they've gone for higher level positions, or when they interview um, uh, individuals for adjunct or for faculty positions, if that is a piece of the puzzle. But in the role here, we're beginning to see that more and more especially with regard to upper level administration.
Absolutely.
And what's interesting is if you look at our competencies, you don't see diversity, inclusion, and equity as a competency or globalization. And there's been there's been a healthy tug of war about getting that in there, because eventually that's going to rise to the forefront. And
Mm-hmm.
and as you said, when you look at employers and what employers are looking for, they're definitely looking for diverse mindsets and diverse ways of thinking, and especially individuals who are committed to working in diverse environments. People use the word fit, but just because it doesn't fit doesn't always mean it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be very careful when we say fit to. Fit to who? Fit to us as an organization, or if we bring in someone who does the job, but their personality or their way of thinking is not like us, we just don't accept it. So I've seen the ball go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It is a very difficult discussion, but I think once you start having the discussions and once you start laying some of the framework out, you'll find that everyone primarily does want to work toward the same goal. We just have a different way of doing it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Kevin. We
Thank
so
you.
appreciate you giving of your time
Oh, no
here so
problem.
close to the holiday. And you have a wonderful holiday and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.